You're 53 years old, and every morning for the past 11 years, you've driven the same route to work, same highway, same exit, same parking spot when you can get it. And every single morning, somewhere around mile marker 7, a thought crosses your mind. It's brief, just a flicker, really. You think about the life you imagined when you were 25. The books you were going to write, the places you were going to see, the person you were going to become, and then you do something remarkable in its ordinariness. You turn on the radio. You check your phone at the red light. You let the thought pass, like a leaf floating down a stream, and you watch it go. 11 years of watching that leaf float by. Now here's what's interesting. If someone asked you whether you're stuck, you would say no. You'd say you're responsible. You'd say you have obligations. You'd say that life got complicated and dreams are for people who don't have mortgages and teenagers and aging parents who need looking after. And you would believe every word of it. You know this feeling, don't you? You've had your own version of mile marker 7. That moment in the shower or just before sleep when something whispers to you about roads not taken, and then you find something else to think about, something safer. But what if you're not stuck because of your mortgage? What if you're not stuck because of your responsibilities or your age or your circumstances? What if you're not stuck at all, and that's precisely the problem? What if the only thing keeping you in patterns that no longer serve you is a decision you made so long ago you've forgotten it was ever a decision in the first place? Let me share something with you that took me many years to understand. We use the word stuck as if it describes a condition that happens to us, like catching a cold, like getting caught in traffic. We speak about being stuck the way we might speak about being rained on, as if we're simply victims of circumstance, standing there, getting wet, waiting for the weather to change. But here's what I've observed again and again in my own life and in the lives of countless people I've encountered over the years. Stuckness is not a condition. It's a relationship. It's a relationship between you and a belief you're holding, between you and a story you keep telling, between you and a decision that at some point you made, perhaps consciously, perhaps not, to stop moving in a particular direction. Think about water for a moment. Water, by its very nature, flows. Put water in a riverbed, and it moves toward the sea. Put water on a mountainside, and it finds its way down. Water doesn't get stuck. Water doesn't wake up one morning and say, I've decided to stop here forever. When water stops moving, when it becomes stagnant, it's always because something is containing it. A dam, a blocked drain, some structure that holds it in place. You are not water that has forgotten how to flow. You are water that has built its own dam. And the most remarkable thing about this dam you've constructed, you can take it apart anytime you choose. Brick by brick, belief by belief, story by story. Now, I want you to consider something. Think about an area of your life where you feel stuck right now. Don't push the thought away. Let it come. Maybe it's your work. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's your health, your creativity, your spiritual life. Maybe it's something you've wanted to change for years, even decades. Got it? Good. Now notice what happens in your body when you think about it. There's a heaviness, isn't there? A kind of resignation, a feeling that says, this is just how it is. That feeling is the first brick in your dam. Maybe you wanted to be a painter your entire life. You took a few classes in your 20s, showed some real talent, and then stopped. Your mother told you artists starve. Your spouse needed you to work a real job. Your children needed stability. And now you gesture at yourself, at your age, at the years that have accumulated, and you say, now it's too late. But let me ask you a simple question. How long does it take to pick up a paintbrush? I'm serious. The physical act of picking up a paintbrush, how long? A second. Less than a second. So you're telling me that in all the years since your 20s, all the decades of evenings and weekends and vacations and quiet moments, you never had 1 second available? Not one? You see, you're not stuck because of your mother's words. Those words were spoken 45 years ago by a woman who had her own fears, her own limitations, her own dams. You're not stuck because of your spouse's needs or your children's stability. You're stuck because somewhere along the line, you decided to believe a story about yourself. A story that said, I am not someone who paints. And Every day that you didn't pick up a brush, you reinforced that story. Every day, you added another brick to the dam. Have you noticed this pattern in your own life? The way you collect evidence for your limitations? The way you build cases against your own possibilities? Here's what most people don't realize. The story you tell about why you can't do something becomes more important to you than the thing itself. You invest in that story. You protect it. You identify with it. And eventually, you don't even see it as a story anymore. You see it as reality. But it was never reality. It was always a choice. I want you to think about the last time you said the words, I can't, or I have to, or there's no way. Think about the last time you explained to someone or to yourself why something wasn't possible for you. Now imagine you're a scientist examining that explanation. Not to judge it, not to feel bad about it, just to observe it with curiosity. Ask yourself, is this actually true? Or is this a story I've been telling for so long that I've confused it with truth? There's an ancient teaching that says we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. Your limitations aren't out there in the world waiting to stop you. Your limitations are in here, in your mind, in your beliefs, in the identity you've constructed and defended for years. And that's actually wonderful news. Because you have no power over the external world. But you have absolute dominion over your inner world if you choose to claim it. Now let's go deeper. Let's look at why you build these dams in the first place. Let's examine the mechanism. When you were very young, 2, 3, 4 years old, you didn't have any stories about who you were or what you could do. You simply were. You reached for things that interested you. You tried to walk and fell down and got up and tried again. You didn't think, I'm not a walking person. You didn't say, my family has a history of poor balance. You just kept reaching for what called to you. And then something started to happen. People around you, parents, teachers, siblings, society, began to tell you things. Some of those things were meant to help you. Some were meant to protect you. Some were simply projections of their own fears and limitations. You're not good at math. You're the shy one. Money doesn't grow on trees. People like us don't do things like that. You need to be realistic. And here's the crucial part. You were too young to evaluate these messages. You absorbed them the way a sponge absorbs water. They went straight into your subconscious mind, where they took up residence and began to run your life. These messages became what I call your internal programming. And most people never examine their programming. They just run it automatically, unconsciously, day after day, year after year, wondering why they keep getting the same results. But here's what changes everything. You are not your programming. You are the one who can observe the programming. You are the one who can question it, examine it, and ultimately change it. Think of it this way. When you go to sleep at night and have a dream, who is the dreamer? You are. You create the entire dream, the characters, the settings, the plot, the emotions. And while you're in the dream, it seems absolutely real. You experience fear, joy, confusion, desire, just as if you were awake. Then you wake up and you realize, I made all of that. It felt real, but I was the author the whole time. Your beliefs about yourself are the same. They feel real. They seem to be describing an objective truth about who you are and what you're capable of. But you are the dreamer. You created these beliefs or accepted them from others, and you have the power to wake up and create new ones. Think about two brothers who grew up in the same household with the same alcoholic father, same poverty, same chaos, same pain. One brother became an alcoholic himself. When asked why, he said, "What did you expect? Look at the father I had." The other brother never touched alcohol, became a counselor helping others recover from addiction. When asked why, he said, "What did you expect? Look at the father I had." Same circumstances, same words, completely different meanings, completely different lives. The circumstances didn't determine the outcome. The interpretation of the circumstances determined the outcome. The story each brother decided to tell himself about what his childhood meant, that's what shaped everything that followed. This is the mechanism. This is how it works. It's never what happens to you. It's always, always, always what you decide it means. And the beautiful thing, the thing that fills me with hope every time I think about it, is that you can change the meaning anytime you want. You can look at the same past and tell a different story. You can take the same raw materials and build something entirely new. You can wake up tomorrow and decide that everything that happened to you was not evidence of your limitation, but preparation for your purpose. Notice what happens when you consider this possibility. There may be resistance. The ego, that part of you that has invested so much in the old story, the ego may say, that's naive. That's denial. You can't just change how you think about things and expect your life to be different. And to the ego, I would say, what has your way of thinking produced? If your current stories and beliefs were serving you, would you feel stuck? Would you be seeking answers? Would there be this quiet desperation that you carry through your days? The ego's job is to protect the familiar, even when the familiar is painful, even when the familiar is limiting, even when the familiar is slowly suffocating the life out of you, the ego will defend it. Because the ego fears change more than it fears suffering. But you are not your ego. You are the vast, infinite awareness that can observe the ego's fear without being controlled by it. Here's a practice that has transformed my life and the lives of many others I've shared it with. When you notice yourself thinking a limiting thought, I can't, I have to, there's no way, it's too late, I want you to pause. Just pause. And in that pause, ask yourself one question. Who would I be without this thought? Don't try to answer it intellectually. Just feel into it. Who would you be if you simply couldn't think that limiting thought anymore? If it evaporated from your mind like morning dew, what would you do differently? How would you carry yourself? What would become possible? That person you're imagining? That's not a fantasy. That's you without the dam. This is the part that nobody talks about. The stuck version of you and the free version of you, they're the same person. The only difference is the thoughts one is believing. You don't have to become someone else. You don't have to earn your freedom through years of struggle. You just have to stop identifying with the thoughts that keep you small. I know it sounds simple, almost too simple. And the mind rebels against simplicity. It wants complexity. It wants strategies and steps and timelines. It wants to believe that transformation is difficult because if transformation were easy, what excuse would you have for staying the same? But truth is often simple. We're the ones who complicate it. So what do you actually do with this understanding? How do you move from insight to lived experience? Let me offer you some practices, not as rules to follow, but as experiments to try. See what resonates. See what opens something in you. The first practice is simply this. Become a witness to your thoughts. Most people are completely merged with their thinking. A thought arises, and they are that thought. They don't notice they're thinking. They just think automatically, compulsively all day long. But you can develop a different relationship with your mind. You can step back just a little and watch thoughts come and go, like watching clouds pass across the sky. You don't have to stop the clouds. You don't have to judge them. You just observe. And in that observation, something remarkable happens. You start to see that thoughts are not commands. They're not reality. They're just thoughts, arising and passing, arising and passing. And you, the observer, remain. When you see a limiting thought arise, I'm stuck. I can't change. It's too late for me. You don't have to believe it. You can simply notice it. Ah, there's that thought again. Interesting. And then you can let it pass, like a cloud, like a leaf floating down a stream. The second practice is what I call acting as if. You don't have to wait until you feel confident to act. You don't have to wait until the fear goes away to move forward. You can act as if you were already the person you want to become, and the feelings will follow the actions. If you want to be a painter, act as if you're a painter. Pick up the brush. Make something. It doesn't have to be good. It just has to be. If you want to be someone who speaks your truth, act as if you're that person. Say the thing you've been holding back. Start small. Start with one conversation. If you want to be someone who isn't controlled by fear, act as if you're courageous. Do one thing each day that your fear would rather you not do. The third practice is this. Examine your I am statements. Whatever follows I am is a creative force in your life. When you say, I am stuck, you're not describing reality. You're creating it. When you say, I am not good with money, you're not observing a fact. You're issuing an instruction to your subconscious mind. Start paying attention to how you complete that sentence, I am. And when you catch yourself saying something limiting, ask yourself, is this who I want to be? Is this what I want to create? You can choose different words. You can say, I am learning. I am growing. I am open to possibilities I haven't discovered yet. So here's what you do. Starting today. Not someday, today. Tonight, before you sleep, I want you to identify just one area of your life where you've been telling yourself you're stuck. And I want you to write down the story you've been telling about why you're stuck. Get specific, get detailed, get all the reasons and justifications and explanations down on paper. Then I want you to read what you wrote. Read it slowly and ask yourself, is this the truth? Or is this a story I've chosen to believe? You don't have to change anything yet. You don't have to solve anything. Just create that space, that tiny gap between you and your story. That gap is where freedom lives. Tomorrow, take one small action that contradicts your story. If your story is that you're too old, do something youthful. If your story is that you're not creative, make something with your hands. If your story is that you can't change one tiny thing about your routine. The action doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be real. It just has to be evidence that you are not as stuck as you thought. And here's what will happen. That small action will create a crack in the dam, a tiny crack. And through that crack, water will begin to flow. And as water flows, it widens the crack. And before long, what seemed immovable begins to shift. You didn't have to become a different person. You just had to stop reinforcing the story that kept you the same. Let me take you back to that highway. Mile marker 7. 11 years of letting that thought float by. Imagine if tomorrow you decided not to turn on the radio. Imagine if you let the thought stay. Let it grow. Let it ask you some uncomfortable questions. Imagine if you pulled over to the side of the road right there at mile marker 7 and sat with the silence. Sat with the longing. Sat with the possibility that you've been making a choice every single day without realizing it was a choice. And imagine if, in that silence, you heard something. Not a voice from outside, a voice from within, the voice of who you could still become. It would say, it's not too late. It was never too late. The only moment you have is now, and now is enough. What would you do then? I don't know. Neither do you. Not yet. That's the beautiful terror of freedom. You don't know what will happen when you finally let yourself move. But I do know this. The dam isn't real. It never was. It was only ever made of thoughts you mistook for truth, stories you confused with reality, decisions you forgot you were making. You are not stuck. You have never been stuck. You have simply been standing very still and calling it imprisonment. And all you have to do, all you have ever had to do is take one step, any direction, any speed. The water in you knows how to flow. Trust it. There's a question I want you to sit with. Not answer immediately, just hold it the way you might hold a smooth stone in your palm. The question is this: what are you waiting for? I mean that sincerely. What exactly are you waiting for before you give yourself permission to move? Are you waiting for certainty? Because certainty doesn't exist. Not in the way you want it to. You will never have a guarantee that the step you take will lead where you hope. No one ever has. Every person who ever did anything meaningful did it without knowing how it would turn out. They stepped into the unknown and found out what was there by being there. Are you waiting for the fear to go away? Because the fear won't go away. Fear is not a signal to stop. Fear is simply energy. It's your body's way of telling you that something matters. The absence of fear isn't courage. Courage is taking action while the fear is still present, while your hands are still shaking, while your mind is still listing all the reasons why you shouldn't. Are you waiting for someone to give you permission? Because no one is coming to do that. No one is going to tap you on the shoulder and say, now you're ready. Now you're allowed. That moment exists only in your imagination. The permission you're waiting for can only come from one place, from you, to you. Are you waiting until conditions are perfect? Until you have more money, more time, more energy, more support? Let me tell you something about conditions. They will never be perfect. Never. There will always be something missing, something inconvenient, something that could be better. The people who move forward aren't the ones with perfect conditions. They're the ones who decided to stop waiting for conditions to change and started working with what they had. Here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to hear. Every day you spend waiting is a day you don't get back. Not because life is short, though it is, but because each day of waiting reinforces the habit of waiting. Each day, you tell yourself tomorrow, you make it more likely that tomorrow you'll say the same thing. You're not just delaying action, you're practicing delay. You're becoming someone who waits. And that brings me to something important, something subtle that you may have missed. You're not just stuck in a situation. You're stuck in an identity. You've become someone who is stuck. It's become part of how you see yourself, how you describe yourself, how you explain your life to others. And as long as that identity remains in place, no external change will matter. You could win the lottery tomorrow, and within a year, you'd find a new way to be stuck. Because stuckness isn't about circumstances. It's about who you believe yourself to be. So the real work, the work that actually frees you, isn't changing your situation. It's changing your self-concept. This is where most people give up. They try to change their behavior without changing their beliefs, and it doesn't last. They try to force themselves to act differently while still thinking the same thoughts, and they wonder why they keep ending up in the same place. But when you change the way you see yourself, when you start to genuinely believe that you are someone who moves, someone who acts, someone who creates, someone who grows, the behavior follows naturally. You don't have to force anything. You simply become it. Let me give you a way to think about this. Imagine there are two versions of you. One is the version you've been the one with all the stories, all the limitations, all the reasons why things can't change. Let's call this your historical self. It's built entirely from the past. Now imagine another version. This is the you that isn't defined by what has happened, but by what is possible. This version isn't carrying the weight of old stories. This version looks at each moment fresh, without the filter of, I've always been this way, or I've never been able to do that. Let's call this your essential self. It's the you that exists when you strip away all the programming, all the conditioning, all the accumulated beliefs. Here's what I want you to understand. Your essential self has been there all along. It didn't go anywhere. It's been waiting patiently, quietly for you to stop identifying so completely with your historical self. It's been waiting for a gap, an opening, a moment when you're willing to see yourself differently. That moment can be now. It can be this breath, this heartbeat, this choice. You don't have to figure out how to get from who you've been to who you want to become. You don't have to earn your way there through struggle and suffering. You simply have to choose, in this moment, to align with your essential self instead of your historical self. And yes, the historical self will protest. It will remind you of all the evidence for your limitations. It will say, but remember when you tried before and failed? It will say, but you've always been this way. It will say, who do you think you are? And you can simply notice those thoughts. You can thank them for trying to protect you. And you can choose differently anyway. This is what it means to wake up. Not once, dramatically, forever. But again and again, moment by moment, choice by choice, you wake up every time you catch yourself believing an old story and choose to set it down. You wake up every time you feel the pull of the familiar and choose to step into the unknown instead. There's a practice I want to share with you. It's something you can do right now, today, and every day that follows. Each morning, before you get out of bed, before you check your phone, before you let the world rush in with its demands and distractions, take 3 breaths. Just 3 slow, conscious breaths. And on the 3rd breath, ask yourself, who do I choose to be today? Not what do I have to do today? Not what's wrong that I need to fix. Just this. Who do I choose to be? Let the answer come. Maybe it's someone who creates. Maybe it's someone who speaks truth. Maybe it's someone who moves forward despite fear. Whatever it is, let it settle into your awareness. Then, as you move through your day, return to that intention. When you're faced with a choice, ask yourself, what would the person I chose to be this morning do right now? This simple practice begins to rewire your relationship with yourself. Instead of being pulled around by habits and reactions, you start to live from intention. Instead of being defined by your past, you start to be guided by your possibility. And if you're wondering whether you can really change, whether it's really possible, after all this time, whether you have what it takes to become who you've always sensed you could be, I'll tell you what I believe. I believe that the fact you're asking that question is the answer to that question. Something in you is ready. Something in you has been ready for a long time. Something in you has been waiting for this moment, waiting for you to finally listen, finally trust, finally act. That something is your essential self. It's the part of you that knows you're not stuck, that has always known, that has been gently, persistently calling you toward your own unfolding. Honor it. Follow it. Become it. Not tomorrow. Now. The universe is waiting to see what you'll do with this one precious life. Don't keep it waiting any longer.